Hello! 3 directors. 3 perspectives on the same city, from the creators of Parasites and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, as well as the master of auteur cinema, Leos Carax. We will immerse ourselves in the atmosphere of Tokyo, the huge, crazy city that provides unlimited opportunities and takes them away in an instant. In today's Japan, young people are trying to find their place in a world that doesn't have much room for them. And what will become of those who have no special talents and do not want to walk over others to succeed? It's probably easier for them to turn into pieces of furniture and get out of the way of those who will build the new world. What would happen if we stopped looking at ourselves in the mirror and forgot about the dark pages of our history? What will happen to the 1.5 million hikikomori who have locked themselves in their homes? First story, interior design. A car drives across the Japanese capital through a wall of rain. The city has been flooding for months without a break. The cost of damage is in the billions of yen, and the number of deaths and missing persons has reached 1 million. Survivors have turned into monstrous amphibians, adapting to the drastic climate changes. The girl, Hiroko, worries that she and her boyfriend will also mutate or die, and in response, the young man lunges at her. Akira keeps making jokes, trying to brighten up the boring ride through Tokyo traffic. The young couple from the countryside are in the capital for the first time, and the guy hopes to become a famous filmmaker here. He is indeed very imaginative. Hiroko helps the aspiring artist with everything she can. Even now, she is driving him around in her car and arranges for her childhood friend, Akemi, to shelter them for the time being. Soon the girl happily meets her friends outside the house and takes them inside. It turns out that she lives in a single cramped room, and for Tokyo, that's still pretty good. Akemi also explains that they can't leave the car in front of the house for too long, or it will be towed away. However, they can park it outside a closed store nearby. In the evening, the hostess treats our guests to dinner and pretends to be a talk show host, asking the aspiring filmmaker about his career. Hiroko shows a poster for the movie the guy has filmed. They have arranged to show it at a small movie theater. Akemi is surprised because they usually show adult films there. However, Akira says that his movie is of a different kind, and Hiroko has refused to play a role in it. The friend complains that the girl has no ambition at all. Akemi wants to see the movie, and the guy turns it on the screen. The art house movie quickly makes both girls drowsy. Akira turns off the movie, and the audience awkwardly applauds, prying their eyes open. Everyone heads off to bed. Hiroko promises to start looking for an apartment in the morning, and Akemi offers to show the movie to her boyfriend, whose uncle works in advertising. Akira immediately falls asleep, and Akemi's roommate, who lives in the other room, enters the apartment. The next day, they move the car and leave it in front of the store. There's a sign saying that they will be closed until Friday. The couple has already been ticketed for parking in the wrong place yesterday. They're almost out of money, and Hiroko calculates how much they need to put aside for an apartment. They look at the available options, but they all turn out to be unaffordable. While the boy is goofing around and parodying the problems of the big city, the girl is seriously contemplating her future. She was offended by Akira's remark last night. Hiroko reads a lot, loves photography and art. She can drive a boat and do other stuff. The guy answers that these are all hobbies, and that she should choose one thing to be better at than the others. The gloomy girl is not in the mood for another outburst of Akira's fantasies about apartment ghosts that live in the crevices of houses. Hiroko accuses him of never being serious, and concludes that she really doesn't know what to do with her life. The young couple continues walking, and Hiroko notices a job advertisement for gift wrappers. She drags Akira into the store, assuring him that it's a great option for a girl with no ambitions. Along with the other applicants, they do a test assignment, and Hiroko is the only one who fails. The guy didn't try hard at all, but still got the position. In the evening, they return to their friend's house. Realizing that they are outstaying their welcome, Hiroko grows gloomy. The next day, she sets out to find an apartment while Akira goes to work at the store. But day after day, the girl can't find a suitable option. Hiroko runs around the city in desperation, bumping into unreasonable landlords and old apartments with cockroaches. Each time she returns to her friend's house, she feels ashamed. In this whirlwind, she forgets about her car and realizes that the store owners have already returned. She runs to the place, where instead of the car, she finds the number of the vehicle pound written on the pavement. Great, Hiroko, you screwed up again. The girl informs Akira of the situation. The guy is very upset. There was equipment in the trunk that is necessary for the upcoming movie screening. The girl lies that she has already picked it up and brought it to Akami's place. Afterwards, she goes to the impound lot, where she receives a huge towing bill and a fine. Hiroko can't pay them and instead asks to be let inside so she can get her things. But the guard flatly refuses, ordering her to follow the rules. Money first, then everything else. The girl pretends to leave and skips through the open gates as a truck drives out of them. Hiroko runs among the rows of cars, trying to find hers, but there are thousands of them and the girl stands no chance. Suddenly the impound worker, who has noticed her break-in, appears in front of her. The employee doesn't like his boss and his idiotic rules either and escorts Hiroko to her car. He's surprised by the stuff she's dragging from the trunk and helps her carry it. Screening day arrives, and the young couple enter the theater, passing posters of questionable nature. Akira uses equipment salvaged by Hiroko to fill the hall with smoke when it appears on screen. Coughing audience members leave the screening, noting the director's unique approach. One of the men offers him a job shooting commercials. Akemi and her boyfriend also praise the show. Some girls approach the director to compliment him and introduce themselves. Hiroko notices this while pouring drinks for the guests. A girl approaches her and asks how she was involved in the making of the film. The self-deprecating Hiroko jokes again, saying that she is a loader, not an actress. The stranger replies that being the girlfriend of a creative person is not easy, and she has had similar experiences. This whole time, a new admirer is flirting with Akira. Hiroko shyly watches them from the sidelines. Later, Akemi's boyfriend spends the night at her house, and they are both unhappy that the guests are staying there for so long. They discuss how the snoring Akira is an irresponsible artist who isn't looking for a normal job, and Hiroko does nothing at all, except cutting silly pictures out of magazines and hanging them on the walls. The girl is awake and hears these demeaning remarks. She covers her ears in shame and bitterness. The next day, Hiroko wakes up and rips her collages off the walls. Suddenly, she feels something in her chest and goes to the bathroom. Horrified, she finds a huge through hole under her shirt with wood bars inside. She touches herself and does not understand what is going on as she feels no pain. Hiroko rushes to her boyfriend's workplace and calls out to him through the window, but he doesn't answer. The girl is embarrassed to go inside and continues walking. She must keep looking for an apartment. Her head is spinning, and she discovers that her leg is now turning into wood as well. Hiroko waddles on, having taken off her shoe, and soon her other shoe falls off as well. The pants fall off the girl, and her body turns into the seat and back of a chair. She looks around, hoping someone will offer help, but absolutely no one notices her. After a moment, an ordinary wooden chair is left standing on the curb, with Hiroko's shirt and jacket hanging from it. People keep walking by, and the evening falls. A homeless man sees the vacant clothes and tries to pick them up, but it's as if they're glued to the back of the chair. He drags the chair after him, and suddenly Hiroko transforms back into a human being and runs off completely naked. She makes it to the bus stop, and when an old woman notices her, the girl transforms back into the chair. The lady sits on it and waits for the bus to arrive. When she leaves, Hiroko regains her human form. As soon as someone looks at her, she turns back into a chair. She runs down the street, trying to hide, but is spotted under a streetlight by a guy who takes the chair home with him. He brings it back to his apartment and begins using it. The guy really likes the find. This is how Hiroko finally finds a home. When the guy leaves, she plays with the parrot, washes the dishes, and waters the flowers. And when the owner returns, she becomes a simple chair. Hiroko writes a letter to Akira, wondering how his screenings are going. She muses. Maybe he's become a great director, or perhaps works in advertising. She doesn't know what has become of her car, or how her friend is doing. None of that really matters though. The girl tries to make an origami boat out of a sheet of paper, but fails again. She is completely satisfied with her new life, even though she is invisible. Of course, amusing incidents happen too, like when the guy comes back at a bad time and for some reason finds his chair in the bathroom. While the owner is writing his book, Hiroko peeks over his shoulder. She is her owner's favorite chair, and she has never felt so useful. At last, she's found her place in the world. Second story, Merde. Amidst the crowds of people and the noise of trains, a strange man in a green suit emerges from a manhole, barefoot and one-eyed. He strides through the streets like the king of the city, taking cigarettes from passersby. Then he snatches a crutch from a guy and immediately tosses it aside. The next victims of the attack are waiters carrying flowers and a couple walking in an embrace. After stealing a passerby's wallet, the madman starts chewing and tearing up the money with his teeth. A young girl and a woman with a child also receive the dangerous attention of the impudent man, who then just as hastily disappears underground. A report on the creature from the sewers appears in the news.
顎ひげも普通では考えられない形です。そして片目が潰れています。
The police begin a search for the man in the sewers. In the meantime, he walks through the underground, where he finds an old tank, followed by flags and references to the Nanking Massacre and boxes of grenades. As if not realizing what he is doing, he pulls the pin and throws a grenade, causing an explosion. The man then climbs out of the manhole and into the crowd of people on the bridge, where he starts throwing grenades in all directions. He shouts something unintelligible as he makes his way through the streets littered with corpses. The man goes back down into the dungeons, where he falls asleep on a bed of stolen flowers. There, he is found by the military and immobilized with a stun gun. The news reports say that the perpetrator did not say a word during the interrogation, and that he only eats flowers that symbolize the Japanese imperial family. People from various parts of the world claim that it is their long-lost son or brother, but all this speculation turns out to be nonsense. A French lawyer, Maître Voland, also comes forward claiming to be able to communicate with the creature. He arrives in Tokyo. The man also has only one eye and a very similar hairstyle and beard. The madman is secured in a chair, and the Frenchman tries to talk to him. He uses his entire arsenal of strange gestures and shouts, but the creature remains silent. The lawyer steps back in despair, and that's when the creature finally responds to him. With his similarly long nails, the Frenchman touches the man's beard, noting their resemblance. Afterwards, Voland explains what he was able to find out. The creature calls himself Merde, which means scum in French, and does not want to be executed for his crimes. While the investigation is in progress, Japanese authorities are toughening their immigration policy, and red-bearded foreigners face more and more harassment. Voland intends to prove his client's insanity. He becomes Merde's interpreter at the trial. The defendant declares that he committed the crimes because he dislikes people, and in particular the Japanese, whom he finds repulsive. When the prosecutor asks why he would come to Tokyo if that's the case, Merde replies that it was not his choice. It was God's decision to send him to the people Merde hates the most. In response to the prosecutor's question as to why he is so displeased with the Japanese, the creature replies that they live too long, and insults their appearance again. Ironically, he has never seen himself in a mirror because his God forbids them. However, he is sure of his own attractiveness, convinced of it by his mother. The madman declares that his mother was a saint, and the Japanese people have violated her, and he is their son. The judge sentences the man to death, and the latter replies that he votes against such a decision. Demonstrations take place in the streets, with nationalists calling for the criminal to be sent to the noose as soon as possible. But there are also those who oppose the execution of the defendant. Among them are those who even admire the man. They put his quotes on their t-shirts, attach a red beard to their faces, and study his language. 3 years later, the day of the execution arrives. As his last wish, Merde wants flowers and money for dinner, as well as to smoke a cigarette, which he is denied. The prisoner gets dressed in a white kimono, blindfolded and taken to the noose. Before he dies, he prays by throwing his arms up in the air. His gesture is repeated by Voland. A hatch opens under the criminal's feet, and very soon he gives up the ghost. At last, Tokyo can sleep in peace. But suddenly the prisoner begins to move, still in the noose, and drops the blindfold from his milky eye. He directs his gaze to a vent, and in an instant disappears without a trace. This time, he is heading to New York. Third story, Shaking Tokyo. A man is sitting on the toilet. He presses the toilet paper sleeve into his hand, leaving a circular imprint. How long before it disappears? 10 seconds? Minutes? Or maybe years? That's how long the man has remained in his house. He is a hikikomori, one of the countless Japanese hermits who have cut all social ties and reached the highest degree of alienation and loneliness. Usually they live with their parents, but this man lives alone.
ドアを開けたままクソをしても、クソをしながら居眠りしても、一個。
He doesn't watch TV, but eats a variety of processed food standing up. Everything in the apartment is in its place, even the countless stacks of books he has read from cover to cover. He loves to read about the mountains, fishing, and traveling, and misses nature a little. There is a room in the house where the boy's father used to live, and the son never goes in there. His father sends him money every month. During the first year, there were letters too, but for the next 9 years, it was just money. These are new, crisp bills that he really likes the feel of. So much so that the man cuts his finger on them on purpose. All that the hikikomori needs is money, a phone, and a roof over his head. His only guests are delivery men. He never looks at them, simply hands over the money in exchange for goods. His favorite food is pizza, which he orders on Saturdays. The man has disliked talking to people for as long as he can remember. He also doesn't like the sun that blinds his eyes when he's outdoors, but enjoys watching the shifting rays that fall on the floor of his room. Everything around him moves slowly, but it does move. The hour hand, the lids of unopened boxes. The only thing standing still are his life and himself. There is nowhere to hurry, so he can take a nap among the neatly stacked pizza boxes. One day, he opens the door to the pizza delivery guy and looks at the floor as usual. But his gaze falls right on the stockings of the delivery girl, who brings another coveted box. For the first time in 11 years, the man raises his head and looks into another person's eyes. Suddenly, an earthquake begins. The guy's neatly stacked possessions shake, and the phone falls to the floor. The girl faints in the hallway. The man runs in a panic from corner to corner. Eventually, it occurs to him to use water to bring his guest to her senses. But for some reason, the girl does not react. Overcome by a new wave of panic, the man approaches her and takes a closer look at the stranger. He notices a tattoo on the girl's shoulder, and not daring to touch it, blows her sleeve up higher. It turns out to be 3 buttons titled Headache, Hysteria, and Sadness. He discovers another one on her leg with coma written next to it. The guy doesn't know what it means, so he consults the dictionary. He decides to risk touching the girl to wake her up after all. Inch by inch, his finger approaches the thigh with the button, and the girl abruptly wakes up when he presses it. She immediately asks if he pressed the button, and the guy confirms. The girl then shows him a child's trick with a cut finger, and then notices a mistake in his stacks of pizza boxes. One of them is upside down. The hikikomori corrects the error by following the stranger's instructions. She finally comes to her senses and declares that the man's house is now pure perfection. The delivery girl sniffs her helmet, concluding that she smells disgusting, and walks outside. Before driving away, she throws the guy one last look. Now he can't stop thinking about the stranger. He shakes and completely loses his peace of mind. The man rushes to the phone and orders pizza again. He puts on his shirt and goes through the phrases that he might say. But when the hikikomori opens the door, there is a man on the doorstep. He threatens someone over the phone and brazenly makes his way into the house to avoid getting wet in the rain. The delivery man uses the owner's phone without asking and demands some water. First, he apologizes, but then yells at his subordinate again and hangs up on him. The protagonist gives him a glass and asks why the girl with the light skin, stockings, and buttons didn't come. The stranger replies that she is his wife. The guy's heart sinks to his feet, but it's just a silly joke. In fact, the girl has simply quit. Before the delivery man leaves, the guy asks him for the girl's address. But what are you supposed to do if one hikikomori wants to meet another? There seems to be only one way out. The man pulls out his sneakers for the first time in 10 years, but cannot bring himself to step over the threshold. And even when the scorching sun goes down, he remains inside. The next day, the round imprint from the toilet paper sleeve on his hand encourages him to finally overcome his fears and step out into the sun. He immediately gets hot and starts sweating. For a second, he forgets why he came out onto the damn street in the first place. He's torn between whether he should take the bus or the subway, but recalls that he didn't bring any money. The guy tries to pull out his old bicycle, which in 10 years has become part of the hedge and turned to junk. Riding it is useless. The hikikomori looks back at his house, which is also covered with plants. For the first time in so many years, he starts running through the streets and feels happy. But suddenly he realizes that the streets of Tokyo are completely empty, even though it's the middle of the day. Through the glass door, he sees a single person, who immediately retreats inside the house. As he continues to run through the deserted streets and highways, the man encounters only a robot delivering pizzas. It's as if the city is dead. All the inhabitants have locked themselves in their houses. He notices people in the open windows and realizes that they all behave just as he did 5 or 10 years ago. And in one of the houses, he sees the very girl he was looking for. She sits silently and does something with the buttons on her shoulder. The guy begs her to come out. But the girl only locks the window in the face of the annoying man. He calls out to her and pulls at the doorknob. At that moment, the earthquake begins again. People run out of their homes in fear, but the girl hesitates. It seems that she has decided to perish within the 4 walls. The streets spring back to life, filled with the hermits who have left their homes for the first time in years. But this stops as quickly as it began, and the inhabitants go back to their houses. The man sees that the girl has eventually come out, but tries to get back inside too. He grabs her by the arm, trying to pull her away, but she fights back and yells at the guy. He makes another attempt, and his finger touches one of the buttons. The word love is written next to it. The girl freezes, keeping her eyes on the man. The city shakes with an earthquake again. This is how Tokyo was interpreted by the 3 foreign filmmakers. Of course, the problems of the big city that were raised here are exaggerated for artistic purposes, but this was done intentionally to inspire people to contemplate them and change things for the better. Were you able to tell which stories were filmed by the directors of the Oscar-winning Parasites and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? As always, look for the name of the movie in the description of the video. In the meantime, let us know in the comments. Are there any examples in your life of how a big city can change a person? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video so that more awesome stories come out as often as possible.